So everybody, welcome to the Point of View Roundtable number 2. We are here with 4 guests who I'm very excited to have. Today we have Ross O'Loughlin, we've got George Cow, Jonah Richman, and Maggie Ostara. So I think we'll probably go through in that order, 10 minutes each, and then we'll have some time for questions, comments at the end. So there won't be time for questions as we go through, but by the end there will be. And of course, if you are a panelist, feel free to have questions to ask each other at the end too. We can, it's a good time to have conversations. When else do we get a chance to hang out except at these things? So feel free to throw down in the questions and comments, or wonderings you have. A good chance for us to have the conversation. So point of view marketing is, I don't know if it's a term I coined exactly. I think I probably got it from Lois Kelly. She wrote a book and she ended up writing the foreword for my book, Point of View Marketing. But she was the first one I ever heard talking about point of view as an idea in marketing. And it was one of those things that as soon as I read it, I couldn't unread it. And it became a filter for so much of how I saw things. So I want to start with Ross. We're going to give Ross the stage. But before Ross begins, I want to read something that Ross wrote, which I just came in an email today. And let me just see if I can pull this up. Ross, the thing you wrote, it was so good. By the way, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing great. I'm slightly nervous because my headphone wasn't working and they only kicked in right as you said. So that's the order we're going to be following. So I'm 100% on the edge of my seat here, wondering what's going to happen. But I'm doing good.
You're good. You're going up first. So let me read this though. So Ross was kind enough to spread the word on a point of view on this conversation today. And I thought he did so brilliantly. And he said something, in the film industry, there's this term, getting it in the can, which means you got it filmed in the old days of a film reel. You'd film it and then you put that film into a can. And so I want to get this in the can because it's so topical. Of course, we're hearing a lot about AI, ChatGPT. And if anyone has their ear to the ground, there's stuff way beyond ChatGPT 4 that is looming, and a lot of conversations about should we be doing it or shouldn't we? And those of you who are in the membership, you probably heard Pa talking about what's happening with authors in the the pulp romance field. Well, there's a format, isn't there? There's a kind of a template for the Harlequin romance things, and it is exact. Chapter 11. Here's what happens. Male protagonist does this, and so for decades, humans have been cracking out, and you change the name of the character and you change the nationality and the hobbies they have and the scenario and the century in which they meet, but it's the exact same story, yet people keep reading it. So if you don't think that ChatGPT can now do that better and faster than humans, you have another thing coming. This is what AI is incredible at, is templates. No good at creativity, but extremely good at working an algorithm. And so we are going from a place of humans crafting things and technology helping us refine it to the technology creates the thing and then the humans refine it, right? So the ChatGPT cracks out a Harlequin romance novel and then a human edits it, which is quite the Frankensteinian inversion. But so there's a lot of concern, understandably, with all the AI selfies, people freaking out, oh, now artists won't have a job, and authors, and you go across industry, and there will be more and more applications and use cases for AI that will have people nervous. And what Ross wrote, I just want to start this off because it underlies the importance of why we're here. So, right, why is point of view marketing so important? 2023 marked a threshold in marketing. Tectonic plates have shifted with the arrival of AI and machine learning tools. People can now spin up and ship out content at a blistering speed. Most people don't realize it yet, but we just passed a junction, and those that are sleepwalking and miss the exit will get a rude awakening in the next 12 months. They will sadly get left in the dust while others speed forward. Why? Well, before the arrival of these tools, you probably noticed that the world is becoming noisier and noisier, more competitors, more options for people, more free stuff everywhere. Getting and keeping attention was becoming harder and harder. AI tools like ChatGPT and more will make this problem 10 times worse. The world will soon drown in oceans of mediocre AI-generated noise, content that's an echo of an echo of an echo, which is extremely well put. AI can create content that does a few things well, but it's lacking in other ways. In that way, it's deceivingly good. But I call this the IKEA AI, IKEA plus AI. Just like the IKEA effect, where people overestimate the value of something they created, people now overestimate the quality of the content they've created because AI created it. What it lacks is the most important thing humans desire from information: insight, perspective, wisdom. Call it what you want, it's all the same thing. A human communicating hard-earned information to another so the receiving party doesn't fall foul to the world's harsh reality. I'm here to tell you, since the start of 2023, it's even more critical to define and share your hard-earned insight and perspective with your audience. Without it, your content and messaging will drift into the background. That says it better than I could say it. I read that and it was the thought I wish I could have thought myself, but I couldn't. And thank goodness there's other people in the world to do this. This is where we're at, you know, and in a time like this, it's very tempting to want to go, to become devious and deceptive and just go through all the tools that seem to work. And my invitation for all of us is, instead of that, we go deeper. And to start us off in that conversation is Ross O'Loughlin from conversionengineering.co, who I've been working with myself on some marketing stuff and getting his help, which has been fantastic. And there'll be more, I'll share more about that later as it evolves. But Ross, over to you.
Yeah, so I guess well, what you just read out is it's quite interesting, right? Like, it was a perspective. It's a point of view on what's going on. It resonated with you, and you were like, "Oh my God, that's amazing!" Like, you managed to say like what I was thinking, and oh my God, like I never thought of it that way, but that's kind of makes total sense. And now, like, you share, not only did that make you go, "Wow, I really like the way Ross thinks. He's got something to say." It made you feel like I'm an authority on the topic, and you've decided to go and tell a bunch of people about it. And like, now you want to share the goodness, right? Like, that's kind of a very human reality of, like, it's why people refer things, right? Like, I want to tell you about things because I found the real stuff. And if I turn you on to the good stuff, you'd be like, "Oh yeah, like Tad told me about Brian or Mary or whoever," like, and that person's perspective and insight and wisdom, which is the real gold in the hero's journey, right? It's the wisdom that you get at the end of the battle with the dragon, right? Like, that's the stuff that really impacts you and like allows you to make better decisions. And I don't think there's a better demonstration than you reading that email out for why you would want to have a strong point of view or to work on your point of view. And I guess that's like there you go. Now, like, what I was getting at with that email is, like, I love creativity, and I love what you were saying about ChatGPT and AI tools. Like, it is not creative, but it is incredibly creative in other ways, because like these AI tools can spit out ideas faster than any human can. But what it does not have is any sense of taste, any sense of discernment, or any sense of experience to know which of those ideas are worth selecting and sharing. And like, the issue, I think, is that with these tools, there's going to be an upper limit. Exactly what George is saying there. AI for ideation, humans for evaluation and direction. Like, yeah, 100%. Like, humans are going to be the creative directors. But what I think has to direct your content, your messaging, is sharing, like sharing your experience, sharing your authority, sharing your wisdom. Like, I think back to when I was first starting as a freelance copywriter, when I was just off the turnip truck, as they say, and wet behind the ears, whatever, green behind the gills. And one of my coaches and mentors and friends, Kevin Rogers, He said the answer is authority content. That's how you position yourself, and how you become in demand is authority content. And he shared just, a simple framework to me, which still stands to me to this day, which is, based on my experience, here is what I see as the solution. Now, I think to go a step further than that, if you really want to do this well, is you got to understand two perspectives, like point of view. I'd never heard that term until you mentioned it, and it just articulates it perfectly. Like, point of view is exactly the right phrase, because there's going to be 2 points of view, right? There's going to be the point of view of the market, and they're looking at the situation and they're looking at it wrong. Because if they weren't looking at it wrong, they wouldn't have a problem. They would already see the solution. You, as the expert, have your point of view, and you see it from a different perspective, which is you see through the problem. But the issue, and again, I don't know anything about point of view. I didn't read that book. This is just like, it was a frame that I was like, oh, that's a great way to think about it in my own understanding. But like, you have the expert view that you can see the market's problem better than they can. But if you just tell them about your perspective, it won't land. It's going to go over their head, right? Because what you have to point out is the reason you can't get around that rock and you keep smashing your face into it is because there's something you're not seeing. I can see it from my perspective. Let me explain the situation that you're in, what you're missing, what you're not seeing, what the real solution is, and what's going to happen if you apply it. And the only way to get good at that is to serve clients, see what they're smashing into, do interesting stuff, and tell the story. It's not more complicated than that from my perspective. But if you're in the mixer, you just have to find creative ways to like tell those stories. Because what I shared with the point of view story there that in that email was literally just for me messing around with the AI stuff and realizing, why is this crap? Why, like, it's taking me forever to kind of get the result to where I need it to be. And it's because it will produce certain things quite well, but it can't see the connections I'm seeing in my head between a conversation with Tad and then a conversation with another client that I had like 3 weeks ago. And then this other aha I had talking to my fiance, where like the synapses fire and then you get the insight. You're like, oh, that's the thing. That's what I got to put in the content. And it's just not going to be able to do that. But if you can get those moments of insight and share it with the market, like, it does an amazing job at getting people to step forward and pay attention to you. So I guess that's what I would do with the old sermon at the start here.
Ross, thank you so much for kicking us off. So next we're going to, whoa, 1 second. Next we're going to go to, let's go to George Kao. So George from georgekao.com, I've known for over a decade at this point, and had the good fortune to meet in person. George and I were.
Tad is very tall, by the way, in real life. I'm like 3 feet tall, and he's like 10 feet tall. So
well, bless you. But yeah, George and I refer clients back and forth with each other all the time, and to rave reviews, at least of the ones that I send to him. And anyway, George, such a pleasure to have you. So over to you.
Thanks so much, Tad, and it's an honor to be here with you all. Really a pleasure. You know, I knew this was about point of view. I didn't know we were going to talk about AI at all, and so I thought, wow, I wonder if anyone is going to. So I thought, I might as well show you all how I might use AI to create some point of view stuff. Would you guys be interested to see this? Because
you're talking to a bunch of hippies, so there's probably going to be horror, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't share it.
Yeah, you can watch in horror, definitely, as this happens, and it might be interesting for some of you, and just to kind of see what's possible and how you might use it. I am totally in agreement with what both Tad and Ross are saying, and probably what a lot of you are saying. Like, first of all, this AI stuff is really urgent. I don't say that lightly. I have been a laggard in tech, like new tech, new software, and even stuff like Bitcoin and NFT. I was just like, like for years. I mean, I had a blog post in 2018 or I think it was 2018 or 2017. Anyway, earlier years, and I'm like, I'm not going to do this crypto stuff. It's not going to pan out well for a lot of people. And I didn't. I mean, that's just one example. And I have about like social media new features. I'm like, story this. I'm like, I'm just going to keep waiting until everyone beta tests everything and freaks out about it. And then once things go away, which most technology does, right? Once things go away, and then the best still are there and people still use it like every day. And I'm like, okay, great. Now I'll learn it. If my clients are telling me, George, you got to check this. Okay, fine. Now I'll learn it. I'll get good at it and I'll teach it. There's always going to be opportunity, you know, for any new technology to like let it ride. And then you could get on it when it's actually stable. This is the first time in over 10 years where I have been this awake about something in terms of technology. I'm like, this time it really is different because it's more like, it's not just another piece of software that came up. It's like, and I thank my friend Sonia DeGray, is her website, said, this is software 2.0. This is more like the start of social media, or some people even say this is like electricity, right? Like that's how significant this thing is, because it's going to be embedded into all software. It's not, oh, ChatGPT, how cute. It's fun. Let's write some poetry. It's not, oh, Bing Chat, how cool. I could search the web a little bit better than Google. Okay, those are fun things to do, but it's getting embedded. So just to, as a case study, as an example, for us to play with it, I really think that the best way to learn, well, to learn software, but I think to learn anything is to play with it. If you can find a way to play, then you'll naturally liberate your human, you know, creativity and leaning in and sort of perseverance towards mistakes that you make and sort of like blocks that you have, like, oh, I'm playing with this. Let me see how I can play with this way, that way. That's why, you know, children learn much faster and for other reasons, but play, it's a good, okay. So let me go ahead, without further ado, can I share my screen, Tad, actually? That'd be awesome. So I basically took a topic. I have a lot of healers in my audience and sort of holistic practitioners. And of course, I've heard about Reiki for all these years. And I said, okay, well, what if I were to create a point of view for, if I were like a Reiki expert, and I'm like, if I can create like a unique point of view about Reiki, I don't know if that's really possible. I know Reiki is an official school of thought, and you probably shouldn't do another point of view anyway, but let's just play with it. I just came up with this idea just 5 minutes before the call. So let's play with it. The first thing we're going to do is to first find out what's the popular point of view within the Reiki field. And then what we'll do is we will critique that popular point of view, because I'll just give you another quick shortcut. I think the simplest way to create a groundbreaking point of view is to critique the mainstream point of view. So, and you might say, well, what if the mainstream point of view is correct? There's always something about the mainstream point of view that is not as nuanced as you would like it to be. It's not as, maybe it's incorrect. Maybe it's incorrect for your ideal clients, or for at least some of you. Maybe it's incorrect for you because you tried it. It didn't work, right? So that's sort of the exercise we're doing right now. What's the popular advice in your field? And then what's your critique against it? But then if you could use AI to kind of get some ideas going. So let me just show you my screen here real quick. Okay, so for some reason, I'm not able to record, or I mean, sorry, share my screen. So yeah, cool. So what I'm going to show you on screen is, dude, I'm so sorry. Tad, now you got to do some video editing. It's all my fault. Sorry, I clicked the pause recording, the start recording is right next to share screen. So I clicked the wrong button. So sorry, guys. Okay, so let me go and share with you. First of all, Microsoft Edge. I'm on a Mac, so I had to install Microsoft Edge to be able to use Bing Chat. And Bing Chat is AI enabled chat. So I have found it to be basically better, easier to find stuff than using Google these days. It's really amazing. So okay, so let's try this out. What's the popular advice within the Reiki field? Again, this might not be the best question, but this is what I came up with 5 minutes before the call. But the idea is we are trying to find. Oh, I think I already. Okay, yeah, sorry, I already did this. So let me just. But it's look how I just answered your question. It's it's smart enough to know that. Okay, so then it gave me this as Reiki is a form of healing energy, blah blah, and even gives like citations or whatever. But so what I did was I basically took the popular advice within Reiki field, and then I went to ChatGPT. So let me go ahead and show you that screen now. Give me one moment. Let me see if I can make sure I get to that screen. Okay. Okay, so ChatGPT. So what I did was this. I said, taking on the role of a Reiki healing expert, can you critique the following advice to help me form a framework of ideas that's more unique and impactful than what follows? I'd like my framework to include, and does anyone recognize this? Diagnosis of the most common problems people have that bring them to Reiki, prognosis, what will happen if people don't use Reiki to solve those problems, and prescription, what they should do as a result. Now, this is all thanks to Tad, because Tad teaches point of view marketing, which includes these 3 things and more, but diagnosis, prognosis, prescription, I think is brilliant. So then so then I pasted in. So besides typing this out, I then pasted in what Bing Chat just gave me. This is the typical, and you don't need to care about perfect grammar, punctuation, spacing. ChatGPT understands all of that. Even its incomplete sentences, it still gets it. Okay. And so what it says is this: as a Reiki healing expert, I appreciate the given advice that encompasses some essential aspects. However, to create a more unique and impactful framework, I suggest we take a different approach. Now, I actually want to add something to it. You can when you're using ChatGPT, you can always edit. You're like, what? I should have added this word to my prompt. So I'm going to go ahead and edit my prompt. I'm going to say that are more unique and impactful than what follows. And I'll say, I'd like my framework to be contrarian to the mainstream view. Okay, thank you. And you always want to be polite to our coming robot overlords. So, all right, click save and submit. And look how fast this happens. This is using ChatGPT 4, which at this time is the more advanced model, which is slower. The ChatGPT 3.5 is even like instant, but this is, as a Reiki healing expert, I appreciate the advice you've shared, but let's explore a more unique and impactful framework that's somewhat contrarian to the mainstream view. Now, I want to say something real quick. Before you do this, right? So this is something, if I were actually doing this in real life, I wouldn't go to ChatGPT right away. I would first go to George GPT first. And I said, I still have a brain and I should still exercise my own brain and spirit and heart and mind-body connection. So what I would do before GPT, GPT is a little bit like cheating, right? Well, we all know from education now and how it's like, try to exercise your own creativity before you lean on a crutch like GPT. So I always journal first. I always go, okay, what would I say? What would George Cow say? So then I would just quickly hammer out some thoughts, knowing that if I get stuck anywhere, that's okay. I now have an instant, loyal assistant that so smart and come up with new ideas for me. But let me just do for my own thoughts. Again, I'm not a Reiki expert, so I couldn't do it. That's why I went to GPT right away. But I recommend that you insert your own views first. And you may even want to put that into the GPT prompt to say, no, just like what I said, right? Let me show you one more time. Just like what I said, right? I would have written all that. And I would also add, here are my initial thoughts, or no, I would first paste in this answer that was given me. And then I would put before you give, before you also integrate my initial thoughts about all this, blah, 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 like that. I would probably do that. Okay, So then here's what GPT gives us, right? Diagnosis. Rather than just focusing on anger or worry, let's expand our understanding to bring people to Reiki. Suppressed emotions, right? Imbalances, disconnection. Now, I don't know if those of you who know Reiki go, well, that's pretty obvious. That's pretty generic. I don't know, maybe not. Maybe that's kind of unique. I don't know. Prognosis. If people do not address these issues, what might happen? Physical health problems, mental health issues, relationship difficulties, etc. Prescription. Using Reiki can take on the following forms: embrace vulnerability, right? Focus on balance, cultivate self-awareness, right? By adopting this alternative framework, you'll be able to blah, blah. And then I can go, thank you, right? Always want to be polite. Can you dive more into the diagnosis part? Again, take on a more edgy and contrarian viewpoint while remaining an expert Reiki master and thought leader. Okay, so go. Okay. As a Reiki, blah, 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 let's delve deeper into the prognosis, societal conditioning, blah, 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 you know. So maybe I would have already thought of some of this stuff, but at the very least, this is a very quick way to ideate. And this is, and I'll just let it keep playing, and you know, you can see some of the stuff is pretty interesting. And then you can even ask it to dive deeper into any of these and intersect, you know, Reiki and trauma, or Reiki and another idea. But I'll just end my segment, and I've gone too long. But the main point I want to make, I guess I'll end with this, is that don't be afraid to use these new tools, because they are tools. They can be used for good, and I'm sure they will be used by some people for ill. But I think that as people who are honestly trying to do good in the world, who want a more beautiful and connected world, it is our opportunity, and I think responsibility, to use these new tools and to shape them in a good direction, because everything we put into these new tools is training its mind to think in these directions. So I would rather train its mind to think in terms of Reiki and healing and environmentalism and you know, connection, than whatever other people are training it to think in. So that's my take on it. I hope that helps.
Thank you so much, George. You know, one of the most important things, I probably will never touch the AI stuff directly, but I also know, as you say, it's going to be in everything we do. It's probably already in my phone, in my laptop. There's going to be, if we're going to be on the internet, there's not going to be any kind of puritanism possible on this stuff. And the thing I want to underline here is the importance of critiquing the dominant point of view, but also our own point of view. Looking at it from multiple angles. One of the most useful things I know I've done for clients is push back on their point of view, is to challenge their point of view, to defend it. You know, this doesn't make sense, or what about this? That's so important. And so personally, I would rather just be able to do that with other human beings, but you know, the world is as it is, certainly. So George, thank you so much for offering your perspective. Next up, we're going to bring Jonah. So Jonah Richman, a newer colleague to me. We met last year sometime on the Instagrams. Jonah's Instagram, so by the way, his website, jonahricman.com. And I think on Instagram, just jonah.richman. And he's got one of the most killer Instagram feeds. It's just a masterclass in point of view marketing, content marketing. I love it. It's one of my favorite, just in terms of solid point of view content that's very focused on particular problems that his people have. Really good Instagram feed. And Jonah, you got some words to share with us. The AI portion of is done. So let's not go there anymore, because we're already done. But Jonah, over to you.
Cool. I'm glad you said that, because I was not planning to talk about AI. And when this started, I was like, oh shoot, should I have planned to talk about that? But I think I think one thing I will say about AI before I get started on what I did kind of come up with to talk about today is it was fun to watch George just show us what he did. I've been playing around with it. I think I agree. I think it's a good idea to play around with it. I also think it is kind of like it's at the stage where like I don't think any of us really know where it's going to go or what it's going to look like. Even the guy who's like the CEO of OpenAI has been saying that. He's like, I don't really even know what this is going to look like.
I saw
So-
Terminator 2. I know exactly where this is going.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. Trump. Yeah. So yeah, but I think it's important for us to play with as content creators, as writers, as creators of anything. I think if you're not playing with it, you could potentially miss out on opportunities. And then
Right.
and then one thing that stands out, just kind of watching George do his thing, that I just kind of wanted to add, and I think some people in the chat kind of said the same thing, is like, you know, I think the problem comes in when we want to think of AI as like, as like we want it to start thinking for us in terms of like coming up with our ideas for us. Like if I'm like, okay, I want to say something impactful, and so I'm going to try and get AI to just tell me what to say. That's going to like get people to have a reaction on social media. That's kind of like having it create your content for you. I think that that's a problem. I think that that may start happening, which is unfortunate. But I think that the way that I find using AI helpful is to help me clarify my own ideas, because sometimes I'll have ideas and I don't even know how to put it into words exactly. Like I'm kind of fumbling with my language. I'll type it in there and it will actually help me find words that are better than what I was thinking. I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say. So that I found really helpful. And then the other one is like, it reminds me of things that I already think. So like doing what George just did.
You got
is,
9 more minutes.
Okay. Doing what George just did, for me is kind of an exercise of like how am I reminding myself of things like, oh yeah, that's something that's important to me and I forgot. Okay, so I'll that's the last I was going to say about AI. Okay, so for me, like Tad said, I focus primarily on helping people with Instagram marketing and social media marketing, and then how to do your sales process in a way that won't make your clients uncomfortable. And so what I thought I would talk about today is how I've started using point of view, or the idea of point of view, which I learned from Tad, with my clients and to help my clients, and kind of the way that I've constructed it. So like, and just to reiterate some things that I really like about point of view is I think it's a great way to differentiate ourselves from other people, but then also the fact that it has, I think when we really do well with articulating our point of view, we can actually use our business and our marketing to make a difference in the world. And I think that that's something that's really important about bringing point of view in. We're not just like, hey, I help you with X problem, but it's like, hey, I have something that I believe is important in the world. And then you happen to be able to mix that in with something that's good for your business. So those are the things I really like about it. And so with social media, some of the things that I find that come up for people that tend to be sort of challenges for them is, one is people find social media to be sort of hollow. Like it just kind of feels like this sort of like dead work. Like, I have to do this. I have to write this. Like, I have to write these things to post on social media. Like it doesn't feel meaty. It doesn't feel like energetically meaningful for people often, at least at first. And then especially when it turns into like, okay, so I'm just trying to appease the algorithms and figure out what the trends are and do all the things I'm supposed to do, that it can really feel that way. And then also when you're newer with social media, there's also the aspect of like, I'm putting all this energy into it and I'm not getting any response, which kind of sucks. And so what I found with point of view is when you really do your point of view well, it helps you to for one to start bringing that kind of emotional like joy or emotional meaning back into social media marketing. And then it also is a really great way to just grow faster. Because what I found is like with my content, like Tad was saying, some of my content is just kind of like basic tips. But I find that the stuff that people share the most is my point of view marketing, because I think it's because, just like what was already said, I think Ross was kind of speaking to it. It's like when you say something and other people feel passionate about that same thing, they want to share it with other people. They're like, oh, you articulated that well. I want to share the way that you articulated it. And now suddenly you're getting your stuff in front of more people. Yeah, there's my Instagram page. Okay, so now I lost my notes because you just blocked my screen. Okay, so
yeah, this is with Jonah. So you can see lots of questions that clients might be struggling with.
Yeah, and so the fact that you're showing this, it actually helps me make some of my points. How much more time do I have, Tad?
Well, you used the first 3 minutes on AI. You got about 2 more minutes left.
2 more minutes.
You
okay,
got about about 5 more minutes.
Oh, 5. Okay, great. That's plenty. So yeah, some things that I found to be kind of challenging when I was first kind of learning about the concept of point of view from Tad, what was the sense of like it felt really nice. Like I loved the idea, but I was like, how do I teach this? How do I like inspire my people to actually sit down and kind of create distinctions where we can understand, like, okay, so this is exactly what your point of view is, or this is the direction that we need to go in. And so this is what I've come up with as some distinctions that have helped me and the way that I work with my clients. One of the distinctions is the difference, what I distinguish between empathy and point of view. So like empathy for me is like when you are articulating the challenges and desires of your client. So it's like Tad talks about it in terms of like Island A and Island B. When I think of Island A or Island B, or your challenges or your pain points, or however you want to call it, what you're really wanting to do there is you're wanting to be empathic. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with your point of view. It's just purely getting into a sense of understanding what's going on for your people. Like this is how they're feeling. This is where they're struggling. This is how they describe what's going on for them. And for me, I feel like that's really, really important to articulate. And it's important to articulate that really first before we share our point of view. Otherwise, people are not going to care about our point of view as much. Like when we can say like, hey, I get you. I understand what you're struggling with. I understand what you want. Now here's my point of view on that. Then people are more interested. So that's something that I help my clients do, is first we really lean into that empathy part. What's really going on with your clients? And then let's look at your point of view. And so I have, like, for me, I've boiled down point of view into one question. Tad probably has a lot more questions, but I have like one kind of core question that I like to think of when I think of like, this is point of view. And so with empathy, part of it is you're really describing the challenge or the pain that your people are in. And then so your point of view for me boils down to, why are they experiencing that pain? Like what is the reason why they're having that problem? And in your point of view, because everybody has different points of view on that. Your point of view might be contrarian to the mainstream view. Your point of view might even be different than their view. Their view might be like, well, my problem, I think, is because I don't get enough sleep. And you're like, well, it's probably not because you don't get enough sleep. It's because you don't get enough exercise, or you need to heal your trauma, or something else. And so that, I think, is actually really good and really helpful in our marketing, even if we're kind of like sharing how our point of view is different from our audiences. If we understand their challenge, they're likely going to be interested in that and then potentially trust us. And then there's kind of like underlying questions that I think go under the why are you experiencing this struggle? So one of them is what ways is society and culture contributing to the problem? And so that's like, so an example of that is like, This could be a point of view that I just kind of made up. The reason why men become so depressed after a breakup is because our culture has taught men that they're not supposed to cry, that they have to always be strong. But if you can't cry, you can't really heal. Allowing yourself to cry actually makes you stronger. So that would be like a point of view of speaking against what society says and using society as kind of like the root cause of the real problem. Which often that could be some of the best point of view stuff. Like if you make society or culture the main problem, and that's what you really believe, people tend to really jump on that. Another one is like, in what ways is your target audience contributing to their own problem? So that's like, so the reason you're not able to sleep at night is because you're staring at your screen before you go to bed. So it's just like, saying something that they're doing. That's usually the least kind of interesting. I think people don't like it when they're the cause of their own problem. So another one is how your competition or other people in your industry are the cause of their problem. So to give you an example of this, as a business coach, this is something that I believe. So there's a lot of business coaches who are making things worse for people trying to grow online businesses. They're causing people to disregard their intuition about how to treat people online and pushing people to do things that just feel wrong. For many people, this is actually why they haven't achieved more success, because it's really hard to do the work when you feel terrible doing it. So that's like a point of view where you're making actually your competitors who you disagree with the cause of people's problems. And then the last one is why people's desires. So if you empathize with someone and they're saying, like, what their desire is. So maybe their desire is to lose weight. Like they're like, well, what I want more than anything in the world is to be 25 pounds lighter. So one way you can share your point of view is to actually share why you would encourage them to change their desire. And that could look like something like, so intuitive eating, I feel like, is a really great example of this. So intuitive eating has the perspective that like you might think you want to lose 25 pounds and you might think that you want to follow diet culture, but that's not what's actually going to make you happy. And it's more likely going to make you unhappy. And even if you lose the weight, you'll probably just put it back on again because you did it in a way that doesn't feel good. What is really going to make you happy is to develop a deep connection and loving relationship with your body and your intuition. Then you might lose some weight, but most importantly, you're going to be far happier and healthier. So that's a way where you're actually like disagreeing with their island B. And I think intuitive eating does a really good job at that. And that was actually I'm not an expert on intuitive eating, but I know enough to where I think that was accurate. If someone in here is an intuitive eating specialist and you want to correct me, you're welcome to do that. But yeah, so that's what I got.
Jonah, thank you so much. Those are really great questions. That's a great list of questions to have. And this is something I'd actually like to ask all of the panelists at the end, would be, what are your top 3 questions? If you were sitting down with somebody and they say, yeah, you sold me on this point of view. I think that's something I really want to dig into. But where do I start? What questions should I ask? So if you have some questions, and maybe even if you're not panelists, but I'd particularly love to hear from the 4 of you. What are your top 3? But before we get to that, we have Maggie Ostara. And oh man, Maggie and I go back a ways. I don't even know how many years, but Maggie has been in this game quite a long time. There's an interview with Maggie, the transcript of which is on my interviews, marketingforhippies.com/interviews.
It's really that's from, I think it's 2010.
Yeah, it's
the Nail Your Message Telesummit. So we were talking about point of view back then.
I guess we were.
We were. I remember you did the niching spiral, which I thought was brilliant.
Amazing. Well, Maggie, over to you. Thank you so much. It's really good to see you after all these years.
I know, it's good to see you too. Glad to be here. And I'll just say I'm not in the business coaching business anymore. I bailed out at a certain point, but it's, you know, once you kind of get this into your blood, it's just in your blood. You just can't, you know, I don't even know if you can recover from it really fully. I haven't tried, but I've still had my own business. So because I've had my own business, I have to know how all of this works, right? And how it goes. But I'm not going to talk about AI, just so you know. I think I'm going to make one reference to it later, but I kind of want to pull us back a little bit from, because we've been mostly talking about tactics, right? And I want to pull us back to give us a bigger point of view about like, what's friggin' at stake here? Okay, why do we even do any of this? And what's in our way? And one of the things I think it's important for us to just kind of remember is that modernity is based on homogenizing us and our points of view. It's about actually erasing culture and calling consumer culture, which it's not. And so for those of us who actually are doing something that we feel is important for the upliftment and the betterment and the evolution of the world, we have to recognize that we are operating counter to these forces of homogenization that are essential for consumer culture to continue to go. Otherwise, why would you buy all the crap, right? Because we buy all that crap because we don't feel we have culture, or we're not really clear about who we are. And people have gotten incredibly isolated, very isolated during COVID in particular, but people were already isolated. And as a reaction to that or response to that, I think there's this huge desire for realness. It's like, where's the humanity in all of this, right? How can I feel a person in something, right? Talk about friggin' AI. Like, there's no person in AI, right? You don't feel any person. You might get some information. You might have something that shows you something you had forgotten to think about, but there is no person there. There's no humanity. There's no heart. And you can see it. Like, you look at the text, there's no heart in any of that text. And what AI is good at, okay, I am saying something here about it, is the only thing AI can do is it can pull from what's already been developed by people. It doesn't generate stuff. It doesn't create. We're the creators. And we need to remember that we are the creators and that we have the ability to be doing that. And when it comes to point of view, I'm like, you know, let's recognize that we do have in the cells of our bodies, the memory, particularly depending on our backgrounds, you know, the color of our skin, the shape of our bodies, our assigned genders and all of that. It has been very dangerous in sort of many centuries of time to come out and be different and to speak your mind. Okay, especially if you're a woman, especially if you're a person of color. So that is real, right? But we are evolving out of that. And it's like, we don't do any service to the world to reproduce homogenized, whatever, things that people call, you know, knowledge. We don't do us a service by doing that. We're just feeding the machine when we do that. So I want to just encourage everybody to like, be bold, be outrageous, say what is really in your heart. Like, yeah, of course, when you're talking about having a business, there is this piece about being able to communicate with your people and your tribe. But one of the ways that you create a tribe is by being bold and being outrageous and going out there and standing up for what you believe in. You know, I'm biased because I think, you know, our world's burning up and we need to kind of get real about what we're doing, you know, if we want to have a world in 50 years, you know, that people want to live in. So I'm biased, and that's kind of more the direction I've gone in, is how do we create points of view that actually inspire people to have agency and take action in really meaningful ways in their lives. And when we allow ourselves to participate in colonized thinking, which is where we are just replicating what we've seen some expert tell us to do, some guru to say to do it this way, You know, I mean, because I have plenty of people who come to me with business questions. I mean, I'm primarily a human design specialist right now and a writer working on the 8 pillars of feminine sovereignty. You know, that's my body of work. And the reason I went in those directions is I was like, we need people to be themselves more, right? It's like, I can give people all the marketing strategies in the friggin' world. And if they're not being who they are, how's anybody gonna get a feel for them, right? I used to talk about the flavor of you, you know, it's like, what's your flavor? Come on, I want to taste it. Like, bring it out here, show us who you are, right? And don't be afraid of it being, oh, but it doesn't fit with, you know, this mark. I'm not talking about you, Tad, because you're cool, but it doesn't fit with this marketing thing that I heard in this class. The more people I have come to me with trauma from marketing, like programs, right? They probably flock to Tad's membership thing because, you know, people are really like squelched, and they a lot of times have been told to get rid of their individuality in their marketing, which is like 180 degrees opposite from what you should do, right? It's like you want to be there, but you also want to be human. You want to be human, be a human, you know? And that means different things to different people. For some people, it's like, make sure that when you're writing what you're writing, or you're shooting your videos or whatever, you're coming from your heart. Like, you're coming from a deep sense of you being connected to the core and the essence of who you are, because that is going to shape the words that you use, the tone of voice that you use, the body language that you have, and it's all going to transmit to people. And so you want to attract the people who like your outrageousness, you know? I mean, one of the things I finally got was, I do great on YouTube. I have a thriving YouTube channel. I actually don't market hardly at all anymore, because I just put out my point of view about human design on YouTube, and the people who like it come and find me and work with me, and the people who don't like it go away. It's awesome, right? Like, when you get a platform and you get to really show up as who you are, then people will find you and they'll be attracted to you. Now, there's obviously a lot more tactics to all of that, and some other guys are better at that than I am these days. I also want to just recommend something to you. I don't know if you know this book, Tad. Do you know this book, Snow Leopard, by the Category Pirates? This is a freaking awesome book. Okay, highly recommended. It's called Snow Leopard: How Legendary Writers Create a Category of One, by the Category Pirates. And the thing that for one thing, they break down different types of knowledge and different types of knowledge that you can use. And a lot of what we've been talking about and what AI does is it helps you to curate other people's knowledge. Okay, you bring together other knowledge that other people have already created and you curate it, or you respond against it, which was what George was saying, right? As you position yourself against it. What the Category Pirates are saying is, well, you kind of position yourself against it, but what you do is you create a new category that evolves the whole conversation, right? So that we're moving into, all of a sudden, we're in a new, almost like a new dimension, a whole new space, because you've created a new category. Now, one of the best examples of this, which some of you may remember, I don't know how long you've been in this world, but Eben Pagan, in his first stuff, right, he created the category. Literally, there was no category before he did it, of dating advice for men. He created that category. He created that category, and then he went around saying, we're the #1 brand in the category of dating advice for men. And he established the category. He established himself as the expert in that field. There wasn't anybody else in that field, right? And then he had that field. So one thing for you to think of is, what's a category you can create, right? And it could be in response to something else, like my work in feminine sovereignty is a response to and an evolution of this idea of individual sovereignty, which has gotten a lot more purchase in recent years, but is only partial. right? There's a whole bunch of other things that we need to create in order to be the stewards that we can have of our world so that we can help heal our world. Like individual sovereignty is not going to get us there. But feminine sovereignty, the way that I define it in the category I'm creating, does that. So for you, what category can you create, which is talk about point of view, right? Category creation is like the pinnacle of point of view. And you don't have to start out with the big thing all at once. If that's kind of like, holy smokes, I'm not even sure what she's talking about. Get category, Snow Leopard by Category Pirates for one thing. Thank you, Tad, for putting it in there. But the other thing is just to realize, and I know I'm coming up on my time here, is just really own the value of what it is that you think and where you're coming from and how the intuitive insights that you have are something that can save our world. I did a whole series on intuition and human design, and the very first one is why intuition will save us. Because it's not going to come from AI, and it's not going to come from science. It's going to come from those of us who are tapping in and really getting a bigger perspective. And every single one of you can do that. And every one of you has a role. It's just for you to really own it and claim it and express it and do it. And the right people will love you and find you and follow you and buy from you and work with you. Okay.
Thank you so much. I wanted to read this quote from Simone Grace Seol. What's her name? From Instagram. She said, "Where do I find clients? Where are they? Where do I find the unfiltered, uncensored, unedited, unapologetic, unmasked, imperfect, multidimensional you? Where are you?" Yeah, people come to her asking that question. And she's like, what do you mean? Where do you find your clients? Where do I find you? I can't seem to even locate you and your opinions and who you are and your personality. And I would agree with Maggie. Boy, isn't this the case? I've seen it so many times. People go into some marketing boot camp, a very unique person, and they come out cookie cutter and templated. And they've killed the very thing that was their long-term ticket. There's a short-term bump because it's recognizable and they're using some tactics. But I suppose this is the thing, the reason I read Ross's piece at the beginning. There's so many shiny tactics. I mean, yeah, I know AI is big. I do get that. There'll be other things. There'll be other iterations. There's going to be some new thing all the time, and people want to lean on those things. But ultimately, what people find over and over again is it was never the tactic. You know, it was always going back to this human something. Going deeper. Yeah, Maggie, go ahead.
Can I make a comment about that? So one of the things that they go over in this, which I find really helpful, is just like I said, the different categories of knowledge. And one of the things they do say is, look, curating knowledge is faster. Like you will be able to make money right away. Like actually one of the reasons that I created my human design practice and my YouTube channel first was I knew people were searching for human design. And so I went, okay, nobody's searching for feminine sovereignty because I haven't created the category yet, but they're searching for human design. So I knew that was a faster way for me to build my reputation in that field and to make money while I'm building my own individual category. Yeah. So it's not like one is better than the other, right? Necessarily. It's more about what you want to do. And knowing that, yeah, curating content, you can make money. Like you can go out and interview 10 thought leaders on a topic and put together, you know, a $97 project from that. Like you can do that in a week or two.
Well, and it's also what's important is curation also reveals point of view, because the nature of the things that you curate on your social media feed, the quotes that you share, the books that you review, all the people you source and quote, that all itself reveals a point of view. If I'm sitting here and I tend to reference and quote Neil Donald Walsh and James Redfield and Marianne Williamson, that is one point of view. If I'm quoting Indigenous elders, that's another point of view. If I'm quoting the Dalai Lama, that's another point of view. If I'm quoting Bill Gates, that's another point of view. Vanda Shiva, you see what I'm saying? So if your Instagram was only other people's stuff, who you select and why is that. Now Ross has got to bounce. Ross, thanks for joining. We'll make sure you got a copy of this recording. Real good to have you here. We'll see you
Yeah,
then.
it was a pleasure. Thanks so much for inviting me, man. It was a blast. I hope everyone got something out of the old point of view that I shared. But we'll see everyone around. Drop me a line if any questions, and enjoy the
All right. Good job, man. So Ross has a few questions here for point of view. He said, my question to ask to sharpen your point of view. What do you stand against and why? Is a great question. What do you stand for and why? Number 3, what false belief does not serve your audience? And where does that belief come from? That's interesting. Where does that belief come from? Those are great questions. These are all, by the way, the questions that Jonah gave, which were killer questions. And these questions here, Maggie, I'd love to get some from you. Here's what you can do. Each of those questions, that's a social media post. Don't worry about it being perfect. But my guess is even in reading it, there's some gut sense of something that comes up. So every single one of those questions could be its own post. Yeah, you could just sit down and journal on that. You could sit down and reflect on it for a bit, turn on a camera and record. You could craft a really well thought out post or rant on that topic and share it. And then just make sure you collect them, because you can ultimately gather those things together into, ebook at some point. This is how a lot of people do their stuff. Maggie, do you have any questions that you would most recommend? If there were 3 top questions that would help people identify their point of view, hone it, articulate it, what would those be? We've got 3. Okay, you're muted.
I just popped them in the chat. So what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be known for? When somebody hears your name, what do you want them to think? What do you want them to be like? Oh, that's the person who does blah, da, 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 right? What do you want to be known for? What do you want to be your legacy? Like when you're gone, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to be left behind? What do you want people to say? Oh, he was the guy who stood up for this. He really opened my eyes to this. I didn't even know that this was happening, or I could think this way. And then what's the most important shift you want to see in the world? I think that when we tap into being a part of something larger, it's very energizing. It brings us a lot of fuel to do the work that we do, because being an entrepreneur is a lot of friggin' work. It's like you need fuel, you need things to help you just kind of, and having something that's bigger, that's beyond you, of course you need to have revenue every month, but I just mean that can really help you to have a bigger voice and have more confidence and step out of fear. Yeah. I think those are the things.
Well, let's turn it over to you, the audience here. What questions do you have? Any comments, any reflections? Yeah, Andrew's saying the more conversations we have, the more we're refined. The way I say that in my book, Point of View Marketing, is what you articulate articulates. Yeah, the more you talk about something, the clearer it will get, but also the clearer you get about it and articulate it in your mind, the more articulate you will become. It works both ways. That's true. If anyone, Andrea, you've got your hand up, so feel free to hit the reactions button, raise your hand if you have something you'd like to chime in with. Andrea, we'll start with you.
Hi, Maggie, I have a question for you. It's related to creating a category of your own. How did you find yours? I'm going to read that book. I never heard about it, but I'm looking in to see how can I find mine, because it may be out there, but I don't know how to grab it.
I would definitely suggest reading that book, because it gives you just a lot of things, I couldn't believe it, like the way it stimulated my thinking, because I was already kind of thinking this way, and I've been doing point of view for a long time, and I was like, wow. So one way to think about it is where's the gap somewhere that you feel you can address? Like dating advice for men, right? Like Evan Pagan was kind of a shy, little socially awkward kind of a guy. I don't think he's like that anymore, but but he was. And so he was like, there's a gap in there being any dating advice for guys like me. So he just saw that and he went, okay, I'm going to fill that gap. So you can look at, where do you see a gap in information, insight, knowledge, wisdom for you? Like, you're like, God, I always wish there was like this. I can't seem to find this. Or somebody else says that to you. God, I keep trying to find this, but I don't find it anywhere, right? That's always a kind of ding, ding, ding. Okay, what is that, right? I mean, for me with feminine sovereignty, I worked in the more kind of in the terrain of individual personal sovereignty, building the inner power within so that we can move confidently into the world to create the change we came here to create. But then I realized, oh, we have to evolve so beyond that to recognize that we have to be in the world with other people. We have to up our communication, our ability to work together. We have to work through all of our crap about how we've had, genocide and colonial, all of it, right? We have to actually face that. And there's starting to be a few people who are putting those two things together, but it's an emerging category, if you will. And so I was like, boom, I'm going to expand what I'm doing right into that place. And I felt it personally first, but then I also really saw it and then I went for it. So that's me. But it'll probably come out of something that you see that you're like, this could be done better. Or they left this whole thing out, right? They left this whole, what about this whole other thing that they're not talking about, right? Then you get to create something else. Is that helpful?
Very healthy. Very helpful. Thank you so much. Sorry,
You're
too many
welcome. You're
words.
welcome. Okay.
Okay, Andrew, you're on the mic.
Yeah, thank you. So this is going to sound kind of sophomoric, but one of the reasons why I'm attracted to this group is because you do take a gentler, like a not gross stab at what marketing is. And that's kind of what George Cow is all about. And so one of the things that I've been wondering in regards to that, but also this marketing and then point of view marketing, if we're being gentle and not gross, how much do we get to? How do we leverage pain points without feeling like we're just twisting nipples and trying to make people just buy my thing? The gross thing is, where does the line between grossness and empathy revolve around pain points? Is that too big a question for right now?
That's a great question. Jonah, you wrote a real sweet piece about this. Do you want to give the live version?
Yeah, sure. And I am not remembering exactly what I said in the post, but yeah, this is something that I've thought about a lot, because I think I actually, like, I've written a lot about this actually, but one of the things that I like to really propose, or I like to stand for, actually, is still using pain points, even if you're an ethical, heart-centered, respectful marketer, or that's your intention. But there's a certain way of using them and thinking about them that I think is the important way to do it. The main way, that, as I was saying before, like I think of pain points when done well is empathy. There's a big difference between saying like, hey, I see you, like, I get that you're in pain right now. I understand the struggle that you're in. I've been through a similar struggle. I'm very familiar with this type of struggle, that like I know it so well that I can articulate it. And then people are like, wow, dude, you do know me. Just doing that really makes a difference. I think that's really, really important for us to do in our marketing, and why I get kind of sad when people say, like, I don't use pain points, or I don't like pain points, because I think you're missing that really, really important piece. Where I think pain points go wrong is is like, it is the idea. I think that some people kind of do a thing, which I wouldn't even necessarily call pain points, but I think it's what people think of, which is like, you're saying things to try to scare people. You know, it's like you're like, well, if you don't sign up for my program, your whole life's probably going to go to shit, and everything's gonna, you know, like you're gonna miss out on everything happy, everything good in the world. That to me, that's not empathy. That's just like telling people some bullshit to try and get them to sign up for your thing, which can, you know, creates kind of almost a fear, anxiety response in them. And that's why I think a lot of us kind of get this cringe feeling when we think of pain points. My feeling is because we're thinking a bit more like that.
And if I'm hearing what you're saying, it's, well, I'm translating empathy as a form of grace, like pre-forgiving them. You're a hurt bird with a wing. I've hurt myself the same way before, kind of. How can you? So what I'm connecting is, if we're going to be a doctor or have a prescription, we have to understand their pain. It has to get addressed at some point in the conversation. It's just kind of the nuance of how we do it. So thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yep.
I would just say the difference is heart.
Yeah.
And manipulation, just knowing the difference between heart and manipulation.
Well, and Andrew, let me make you work for your dinner just a little bit here. Is, okay, having heard what you heard and thinking about pain points, what's the connection that you would make between that and point of view marketing?
Thinking about it for just a second, rather than just trying to have the right answer, I think that a lot of my own point of view is trying to help people mitigate before they even hit, you know, they step in the dog poop is a metaphor I use. You know, I know it's there. I've walked this path a lot. I'll tell you where it is. But, you know, I want to help people before they get hurt. But I'm also learning that people have to hurt so much before they finally come to you. And so.
Good. That's a good opening salvo. That's true. I mean, it's not something to be proud of as a human being, not something to be ashamed of, but it does seem to be a human thing. We just seem to need to hurt pretty bad before we change, or something big needs to happen. Inspiration, desperation, it just seems to be the human condition. But number two, just to consider this as a connection point between point of view and the pain. First of all, if people aren't in pain, if there's no problem, why are they coming to us? They're not, actually. They're just not coming to us. So there just needs to be some problem. I mean, of course, otherwise they're just hiring us to be nice to us. Is that the deal? So they have some problem and they come to us. They don't know why they're in pain most of the times. Yeah, they actually don't understand why. And that is the biggest pain. There's the pain of the immediate symptom, and then there's the pain of the lack of context. Why am I suffering so badly? Because I've tried so many things. What they want from us more than anything, it's not just relief from the immediate symptomatic pain, but it's a context of why they're in it. Yeah, so they don't go back there. And so much marketing misses the point of view piece. Most marketing is, does it hurt? I bet it hurts real bad. Let's amplify that and now buy now and free set of Ginsu knives. Yeah, but it skips the point of view piece. In most marketing, that's absent. And so then what we're fundamentally saying is, does it hurt? Well, trust me and buy. And here's the guarantee and all the incentives and the urgency and the social proof and all the tactics that get used. And with point of view marketing, what we're saying is this. Hey, does it hurt? I get it. Maybe I felt the same way. Here's what I found. Yeah. Do you feel this way? You know, I felt that way too. Here's what I found. This is my understanding of it. And then it's, I trust you. If this resonates with you, here's where you get more. But I trust you to make that discernment. So that's one way. There's probably more, but that's one way I'd connect it. And we've got something from Jim and then Amber. So Jim, you're up.
Yeah, roger that. Three things. First off, nobody likes to be manipulated. And there's a lot of internet cowboys out there that all they teach is how to manipulate. And narcissism and manipulation go together, just like narcissism and denial go together. So that's one thing. The second thing is pain control hypnosis. We turn up that pain so that we can then help people understand how they can turn the pain back down. So, and it really works like crazy. Just talk to a hypnotist that works in a hospital. They'll tell you that. The third thing is that in counseling, I was just talking to somebody about this morning. In the counseling office, I really like to work on the pain definition because it focuses the conversation and it helps the person understand we're not kitchen sinking here. We're talking about something specific. So those are my 3 points. Manipulation, nobody likes it. Pain control, hypnosis, turn it up so you can turn it back down. And in counseling, let's focus the conversation so that we can help you discover your ideas about relief. It's not prescriptive necessarily, but it is a procedure that's prescriptive. So those are my thoughts about that. I think they're useful.
All right, thank you so much, Jim. All right, Amber, over to you.
Thanks. So in my work, I help people structure their thinking around how they deliver their perspectives in workshops. And I'm curious to hear from the people that are left, how you think about structuring the sharing of your point of view. Is there a specific order that things need to happen in? Do you, I know, Jonah, like you have like this Instagram presence and it might be kind of piecemeal. People are taking like bits and pieces here and there. And so things might get a little bit out of order. Is there an order that you think things should be shared in? Like, how do you think about that? It's not a fully formed question, but I think you get the gist of it.
Yeah, Jonah, let's start with you. So, right, if somebody came to you and said, I think I'm going to do a workshop, I want to, kind of share my point of view on my Instagram posts, like, is there a sequence that you would recommend?
Yeah, there is actually. And I love this question because I used to lead a lot of workshops. I haven't as much lately. And I used to structure workshops. And so I've been helping people with some lately. So I have been thinking about this recently. My feeling is the order of things in a workshop, and it's also similar when you're writing content, especially long form content. It makes it easier to do than short form content, but even short form. But the order that I like to do again is I always like to start with empathy. So like before getting into it, like have the beginning of your workshop be where you're really conveying your like giving people that sense of relief that they're in the right place. Like I know what you're going through. You describe what they're going through. One way to do that, a lot of people will share kind of your personal journey in the beginning of a workshop. I think your personal journey is a great way to show empathy, because when you're describing your own challenge, it helps. If it's similar to theirs, it helps people feel like, you really get them, like, their pain. I think it's interesting what Jim was saying about turning up the pain to bring it down. I think like one thing I feel about empathy, when empathy is done right, it creates emotional relief for people. Even if you're just describing the pain, it's like people get this visceral bodily sense of like, oh, like, yeah, that's it. Because oftentimes we feel so alone or so lost or so confused. So I like to start with that. And then for me, point of view is the next step where you're describing like, okay, so here's my view on why this problem exists. And I think in that, like, I like a lot of the other questions around like, this is where I take a stand and all of that. And for me, I think that fits into that question. But the reason why I like the question so much, this is why your problem exists as kind of the core front and center question for me, is because it brings your client into the question. It makes it so like, it's not just what I stand for, but this is how what I stand for relates to you and how it can help you. So that's the next thing. Like first, you're really giving people that experience of empathy by describing their challenge and what they want. And then the next thing is you're describing like, this is my view on why this happened. And then the next step is then, here's what we do about it. And then that's where I like to get into like exercises and actual strategies or things like that. Is that helpful?
Yeah, thank you. That's great. Maggie, do you have any thoughts on this, on the sort of structuring of the order of these things?
Yeah, I mean, it depends a little bit on the specific thing that you're doing, right? So one of the things, like when I used to do a lot of public speaking, and I always like to do something that really grabs people's attention at the beginning. And that's true for speaking, but it can be true for a workshop also. So some kind of pattern interrupt. So something that breaks them out of just however they arrived to the thing that they're at, right? That makes them kind of go, oh, because it wakes you up when there's something that is, whether it's dissonant or whether it's just different than what you thought was going to happen. It makes people all of a sudden kind of wake up in a different way. And one of the big problems that we have with anything that we're offering these days is that people are programmed to consume information, not integrate it and utilize it. And so we want to break the consumption cycle right away, because otherwise everything kind of proceeds into an almost prescribed way of experiencing information, right? So something at the beginning, whether that's, like sometimes I would have people like literally run around a room. I'm like, okay, let's go. Let's run around the room. Let's get going. Let's get our blood moving. Let's get, how does this feel in your body? What are you thinking? What happened this morning? Let it go. Let's go. Right. I mean, there's a lot of different things that I've done to kind of just get people's attention. And I think it's important to kind of do some of those things throughout, like if you have a whole day, or I've done like 3-day events, things that are in those longer segments that also are a little, again, like pattern interrupt, not necessarily shocking, right? But something that does kind of might feel disruptive, so that people can actually have a different experience. Because otherwise what they tend to do is just pour whatever you're offering them into a predetermined way of experiencing a workshop or a webinar or whatever. And empathy certainly can be a part of that, especially if you start a story with something that's kind of like, whoa, right? And then you go into presenting something that people can see themselves in. But that's one of the things I would just say. There's a lot more to say about it, but just making sure you actually have people's attention, right? People are actually engaging, because the best content in the world doesn't mean anything if people aren't taking it in and doing something with it. And I'm actually about to do a video on how people consume human design as mind candy. It's not mind candy, it's a transformational experience, but people treat it like it's mind candy, which is often how people will treat like sometimes marketing tactics. It's mind candy. It's like, oh, I'm going to learn all the things, but then have you made it your own? Are you comfortable doing it? So, yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, we do that with spirituality too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We do it with everything. We're so the consuming, right? We're just so programmed into it. It's insidious. The homogenizing and the consuming. Yeah. So how do we break out of that? I mean, that's another question to put in is, how do we help people break out of their cycle of thinking of, what is it, infotainment, right?
Sure.
Into actually having a transformation.
Oh, amen. Thank you.
And I'm going to have to buzz off in like a minute or two. I don't know how long you're going, but I have a client call.
We're sort of in the wrap up, but go as you need to go and go with our blessings. Thank you so much again. Really just so fine to see your face. And is that your book that you wrote there behind you?
I'm in this book. This is a series, there's a whole bunch of different people who wrote experiences of theirs with human design. My next book is almost to the editor. It's going in bits and pieces, but.
And by the way, your website, did I get it right, the one I posted there?
I don't know what you posted. Sovereignty by Design.
So sovereigntybydesign.com. That's Maggie Ostara if you want to check her
Yeah,
out.
and if you want to check out YouTube, just search for my name on YouTube and it'll come up. Great to see all of you. Good luck. The world needs your service.
Amen.
Go forth and offer your gifts and make good money doing it.
Yes. Pip, pip. All right. So as we wrap up, I would love in the chat if everyone wants to share what was the number one, if there's just one piece you're going to take from today, one nugget, one little distinction, idea, question, insight that you're going to take and apply that'll be most useful. Like we wave a magic wand and you forget everything from this whole damn thing, and you're only allowed to remember one thing. What would it be? So Lisa said, yeah, what do you want to be known for? What's your legacy, most important shift you'd like to see in the world? Okay, so those 3 questions, great. Again, those 3 questions can be, each one of them is a post. Andrew, that there are 2 points of view, right? Our point of view as the service provider, but also their point of view, which Amber Beckett here from the Hello Code speaks about really brilliantly as a way of engaging in the workshop, acknowledging both. So check her out, thehellocode.com, I believe. Bringing a unique human story to point of view. Yeah, oh man, story plus point of view. This is a whole other level of point of view. In a very, Amanda said, in a very disruptive society, consumer content, giving their nervous system a chance to calm, maybe that's also true. Yeah. Andrea, create your own category. That's very powerful. There's some videos, by the way, there's a bunch of content I was sharing and others were sharing in this thread. So I recommend saving it and taking a gander at some of that. I think you'll find it deepens what we went into today. All right, and Amber says there's 3 points of view, actually, not just ours and theirs. Joey said, it's a nice reminder that marketing can be a communication vehicle of putting your authentic self and beliefs out there, and we can integrate that intention in practically any strategy. It's one of the biggest questions I get. People say, what do I do with point of view? And my retort is often, what don't you do with it? What do you mean, where do you use it? Where do you not use it? Well, show me a place in your marketing this wouldn't go. But it's on your homepage. It's in your bio. It's going to be in all your social media posts, all your emails, hopefully your sales letters. And you might even have a My Philosophy page. I mean, it's just, if you write a book, what is a book? Point of view plus stories. So this is one of these great all-purpose tools of marketing. It's a foundation of so much of the other stuff. And as Maggie's pointing out, if you want to find your people, one of the easiest ways to find your people is to show up more fully. Start sharing what you think. Start sharing what you believe, and that will draw the people who, of course, resonate with that. Jim said, one takeaway, it's good to be in such company. It is good to be in such company. Diana said it's important to be the contrary voice because people need to think and not just consume, including if you're in a community that is dedicated to being contrary voices, being contrary to the contrariness. Yeah, is, but I would tweak that. I would say it's not about being contrary for contrary's sake. That's a bad move because contrariness, where does that come from? That's a sign that you're in an unhealthy society. Yeah, if you're in a healthy culture, like a traditional culture, and they've really got stuff worked out, there's no need to be so contrary. The contrariness is an indication that you live in a fundamentally unhealthy society. And so we need to be contrary. Why? Because the mainstream is terrible. Because the mainstream is so anti-life, is so destructive, so toxic. So thus the need to be contrary to that. So it's not that contrariness is a virtue on its own. It's a kind of medicine that is needed in particular times and places. And good to just know where we are. And I think most of us are safe, given where and when we are, that it may be helpful. Christopher said, take home message, the flavor of you. And this book, Snow Leopard, yeah, I'm curious to check that out. Amber said, being ourselves fully can help heal the world, don't hide. Yeah, That's something I'm taking away. Two of the big things. I think that when people come in pain, there's two things going on. One, they don't know why they're in pain, but two, they feel alone in the pain. Most people, we just, given the way society's set up, most of us believe we're the only ones dealing with it. It's why poetry is so amazing. Oh, somebody else has hurt this badly before. I remember in high school reading a poem by a fellow who was a contemporary of Shakespeare. I think his name now, Sidney something, but he wrote this heartbreak poem, and I was really going through some high school heartbreak. When I read it, I just thought, he knows. He gets it. One of the lines was, "Oh, moon, thou hast a lover's face." And he's just talking about how heartbroken the moon looks. And he's like, "Moon, you know." And I just thought, oh, this guy knows. Yeah. Yeah, Amanda Jane said, changing the expectation of consumption is a healthy way of being in the world, returning to being a human creator. Yeah, Stephen Jenkinson has a beautiful piece about this called "They Eat Teachers Here." And if you can find it, it's well worth a listen. Yeah, right. People feel alone, and there is shame tied to that. So when we start acknowledging the pain, that they're not alone, that takes a lot of the heat out of it, because a lot of the heat of it is ashamed. I shouldn't be having this. Oh, there's lots of other people. Okay, it can't just be me. Clearly, I'm not just broken. There's a stadium full of people all going through this. Maybe there's something big, which gets to Jonah's question. Why? So why is this happening? Are you all idiots? Probably. But aside from that, beyond the typical human stupidities that we have, what else could be going on? Probably lots. And our ability to articulate that is so liberating for people, because there's a way out. And for most people, they don't feel like there's a way out of the pain. And us just saying, trust me, it's going to be okay. Just give me your money, and I promise I can help, is not trustworthy. The thing that's trustworthy is showing how. That's the trustworthy thing, it seems to me. Yeah. Okay, we went way over time. I was only go about an hour, but thank you so much, John, for sticking around, and thanks to all the panelists who were here, and thanks to all of you for coming. Of course, next week we start our point of view semester in the membership. So if you go to marketingforhippies.com /POV-semester, or you can just go to my events page and you'll find it. But if this is of interest to you and you want to dive deeper into the whole point of view racket, feel free to jump in. And if you have any questions about that, just email me, tad@marketingforhippies.com. We will see you down the road, everybody. Take care.